Chair, table, cuddly toy, hair dryer, bread maker.
Hello and welcome to this Picoh tutorial. We're going to start by creating a new file and we're going to call it memory game. We're going to use some existing code here, so we're going to go to File and open a particular file called welcome, and that contains some blocks of code which we can use. The first one, what that does is it makes sure the lips of Picoh are synced with the text that he says. So we're going to copy that into our area, and we're going to get this other bit of code here which makes Picoh's eyes move. So we'll copy that in there as well, and we don't need these bits of text here, so we'll delete those, and we'll move these bits of code over to the right hand side to give us some space. What we're going to do now is we're going to choose a voice for Picoh. Let's just get the green flag to begin with. Then we're going to choose a voice for Picoh. We're going to choose Microsoft David. It's a nice voice, I think, for this particular game. And what we're going to do then is we're going to play a nice piece of music here. We're going to choose fanfare and click open. That's it. And what we're going to do now is say a few things to start off the game. So we're going to get the blocks of text there. And we're going to say, to begin with, hi there, I'm Picoh, and I'd like to welcome you. But let's get all the blocks first of all. We need 5 blocks of code to begin with. Here they are. And now we're going to type in, hi there, I'm Picoh, and I'd like to welcome you. As you can see there, I've quickly typed in all the other bits and pieces you're going to need to begin the game. And now we can run the code.
Hi there. I'm Picoh and I'd like to welcome you to the memory game. I'm going to say 5 objects and you have to memorize them. You'll get a point for each one you can remember. Listen carefully.
Okay, we're going to now make a list, and we're going to call the list objects, and this will store all of our items that have to be remembered. And we also need to make a variable at this point, and the variable is basically to be able to count through the items. So we're going to call the variable P, and what we're going to do now is set P to start off with as 1, so that when the program starts, P will already be 1, ready to look at the first item in the list. We're also going to delete all of the objects that are in the list. There aren't any in the list at the moment, but if we play the game more than once, we need to make sure that whenever we start the game again, that the list is empty and doesn't have any items in it. So we're going to delete all the items, all the objects from the list there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add, basically by creating an item to the list, each of the objects we need to remember. So we're going to start off with chair. We're then going to add an item called table. Add another item. This time we're going to add a cuddly toy. If you want to add different items, that's fine, no problem at all. Cuddly toy and another item. This one, let's say hair dryer. And we'll add one more item. Final item, and we'll call this one, let's say, bread maker. So a variety of items that the person has to remember. So when we run the program, these will then be stored in the list. And if we click this box here, the objects will show up in the list at the top of the window. So we're now going to use a repeat, and the repeat will be for the length of the list of objects. So it will repeat, if there are 8 objects, it will repeat 8 times. If there are 5 objects, it will repeat 5 times. So we just need to put the objects in there so it automatically knows how long it needs to repeat for, or how many times it repeats for. We now need to say each of the items. So Picoh will say each item that's in the list. So if we put in there item P, as we know, P at the beginning is 1, so it will say the first item in the list. And if we do change P by 1, it will repeat each time saying a different item from the list.
Hi there. I'm Picoh and I'd like to welcome you to the memory game. I'm going to say 5 objects and you have to memorize them. You'll get a point for each one you can remember. Listen carefully. Chair. Table. Cuddly toy. Hair dryer. Bread maker.
We're now going to first of all play a sound. This creates a break between Picoh reading the objects and the person needing to guess the objects. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set a variable called attempts to 0, because this variable is used to set how many tries the person's had, and obviously at the beginning of the game they've had 0 attempts, so that's set to 0. And then we're going to use a repeat until, and within this repeat until we need to repeat it until the list is empty, and that's basically saying the length of the objects equals 0. We also need to do another item within the repeat saying item attempts equals 3. So let's just do the length of objects first. So length of objects equals 0. And the second one, we need to get the variable attempts, which is up here. And we need to set that to 3. So the person, it will carry on repeating until the list is empty or the person's had 3 attempts. So we need an OR operator so that these two can fit inside it. So let's just put that there and then place each of these inside the repeat until there. So it's the first one or the second one. It will carry on repeating. We're now going to use the variable P again, and we're going to set P here to 1. So it's the first time we'll be using it in this particular way. And we're also going to ask a question. Get Picoh to ask a question. So the question will be, name an item from the list. So the idea is that the person has listened to the items and now must name each item. So name an item from the list, and Picoh will then wait for an answer from the person. We also need to use the variable attempts again here. So we need to go back to the variables there, and we need to change attempts by 1. So each time the person has a guess, then attempts will increase by 1. We'll now use another repeat until, and this particular repeat until looks for the item in the list. So basically we need to have an operator equals again, and we need 2 of those. The first one is going to say item P of objects, and we need an OR there as well. So let's just get the item first of all. So from the list here we choose item of objects, and we want item P. So it basically goes through the list looking at item when P is 1, P is 2, P is 3, P is 4, etc. So item P of objects, and that needs to equal the answer. So it looks through the list and says, oh yeah, does that equal the answer? And it will carry on doing this because it's a wait until it finds the correct answer. And the OR there is looking for the P that's at the end of the list. So if the list is 5 objects, for example, if P equals 5, then again it will carry on until it reaches 5 objects. So we put those together into the OR and then into the repeat until. And we put that under the existing repeat until. In fact, it's inside that particular repeat until. What we now do is we get change P by 1, so that it basically looks at the different P. So when P is 1, P is 2, P is 3, it will go through each item in the list. We're now going to use an if then else, and this is the final piece of code here. So basically, if an item P of objects equals the answer, then you're told that you've got the answer correct. So if item, and we need a P there, so go to variables and choose P of objects equals the answer. Let's look for answer there. Then we need some text. We need Picoh to say that's correct, well done. So there we go. Let's put this in here. So that's correct. Well done. And we're going to give them a point. So we're going to say you have scored a point. We'll do the points later on and you'll see how that's done. We're also going to delete that item from the list so that the list gets shorter each time you get an item correct. Okay, so we're going to delete, so if it's P4, then it will delete the fourth item from the list. What we're now going to do is the else. So we're going to say, sorry, that's not correct, because the person hasn't managed to guess the item correctly.
Hi there. I'm Picoh and I'd like to welcome you to the memory game. I'm going to say 5 objects and you have to memorize them. You'll get a point for each one you can remember. Listen carefully. Chair. Table. Cuddly toy. Hair dryer. Bread maker. Name an item from the list.
Table.
That's correct. Well done. You have scored a point. Name an item from the list.
Cuddly toy.
That's correct. Well done. You have scored a point.
Okay, finally, we're going to create a scoring system for the game. So we're going to create a variable called score. And what we're going to do first is we're going to, at the beginning of the game, set the score to 0. So obviously the person has no score because they're just starting the game. Then each time they get an answer correct, we need to change the score by 1. So we put that in there. And at the end of the game, we need Picoh to say what the score is, so they know what they've scored at the end of the game. So we're going to use join there. And we're going to say you have scored. And we need a couple of joins because we're going to say you have scored. We need the variable score there, and we need to say points at the end of the game there. So you have scored. Now we're going to get another join, put it in there, and we're going to get the variable score and put it inside the middle one, and at the end say points. So each time the person gets an answer correct, they score a point.
Hi there. I'm Picoh and I'd like to welcome you to the memory game. I'm going to say 5 objects and you have to memorize them. You'll get a point for each one you can remember. Listen carefully. Chair. Table. Cuddly toy. Hair dryer. Bread maker. Name an item from the list.
Table.
That's correct. Well done. You have scored a point. Name an item from the list.
Cuddly toy.
That's correct. Well done. You have scored a point. Name an item from the list.
Bread maker.
That's correct. Well done. You have scored a point. Name an item from the list.
Chair.
That's correct. Well done. You have scored a point. Name an item from the list.
Penguin.
Sorry, that's incorrect. You have scored 4 points.